Welcome you all for yet another discussion, yet another video on Dr. R.S. and U, Science of Cosmetics and Personal Care Products. I trust you have all seen part 1 introduction where I have introduced myself and the purpose of the program, and if we have almost completed 18 parts, no? Part 1, part 2, each part has the continuation. When you see part by part, the understanding of the entire discussion, there will be a continuity. So I request people who have not seen the other parts, kindly go through part 2, part 3, part 4, and today we are in part 19, right? Part 19 is building blocks, preservatives, section 2, right? Section 1 we discussed on antioxidants and chelating agents. So section 2 we will be discussing on antimicrobial preservatives, right? We will be discussing on antimicrobial preservatives. So this is the thing we will be discussing on antimicrobial preservatives. So before we go to the preservatives as such, microbial growth. What are the conditions that support microbial growth? What are the things required? What are the parameters? One, proper temperature. Then suitable pH. Then relative humidity, moisture. And the nutrient. And 5, the oxygen, mostly for aerobic. Anaerobic also grow in the absence of oxygen. So bacteria and fungus, different types of bacteria grow at different temperatures, but between 20 degrees centigrade and 40 degrees centigrade, it's ideal for the growth. pH around, you can say 5 to 7.5 is the ideal pH. Humidity. See here, there are the most important thing here is the unbound moisture. It's unbound moisture. See, water, it's called water activity of a product. Water activity of a product, right? Water activity of a product. The water content of the product might be high, but the water will be in the bound state, right? So that the water activity is very less. So even though the water is high, if you keep the water activity in a product low, you can control the microbial contamination. There are equipments by which you can measure the water activity, the bound moisture, based on the vapor pressure above the product. The vapor pressure, the partial vapor pressure or water vapor above the product. So it measures that and it gives the your water activity. Lower the water activity, lower is the chance of microbial contamination, right? Because microbes need moisture for growth, right? Chance of nutrient, lot of nutrients, no, especially protein rich active, then natural ingredients, and so on, no, natural ingredients and so on, no, it goes. So basically when you have an active or an ingredient which is protein rich, it's susceptible. Then you have natural ingredient, you have things like minerals like kaolin, right? Or you have herbal powders, neem powder, no? So apart from the actives in the neem which can act as a antibacterial, but the neem powder as such has lot of other ingredients that can promote microbial growth, neem powder. So you have to be very careful. Why I said neem powder is people usually think that neem powder will not support any microbial growth. It's not true, because if you neem leaf powder, if you keep it, it can with moisture, it will microbial growth will be very, because other starch and other things on the things can support microbial growth. So protein, natural ingredient, no, also starch, right? All those things can support microbial growth. Oxygen, no, if the product is not properly closed by the consumers, or if the product is aerated, there is a chance of that gives, and if all the other conditions are right, there will be rapid aerobic bacteria growth, right? So when you formulate the product, you have to take care of all these things, no? Basically you can't control the temperature, consumer will store at no suitable pH. So this pH, it can, the products has to be preserved, relative humidity. So if possible, you have to keep the water activity of the product as low as possible. Nutrient, when you are adding ingredients in the product that can support microbial growth, you have to select the preservatives accordingly. And of course, if the product is, some of the products, no, it has to be vacuum is applied so that air is removed. It's better. Air can support oxidation, which we said before, and it can support the microbial growth also. So now, what are the sources of contamination? Sources of microbial contamination. What are the source of contamination? Can be water. So when we discussed water as a building block, no, we explained how careful you have to be to keep water microbial free. Water you use for formulations microbial free. We said different processes. So water can be the main source of contaminant. Then other raw materials used. Can be the source of, again, like talc, starch, natural ingredients, no, they can be source of microbial growth. You have to be very careful. Or see, the raw material input itself has to be tested for microbial contamination. No, there itself, if you arrest, you can preserve the final product much more effectively, right? Environment. See, the air quality. Right? In the manufacturing area, filling area of the product, raw material storage area, if the environment itself is contaminated with the spores of bacteria and the fungi, and so you have to have a good GMP, good manufacturing practices. You control the environmental conditions so that you don't allow contaminated air entering these places, right? Then equipments. See, using for manufacturing or transfer of products or filling. No? See, for example, there will be a stainless steel pipeline through which you will transfer the product from the manufacturing vessel to the filling line, and you will clean the pipelines, but there are some spots, the bends in the pipeline where the product keep on accumulating, and those spots can be a very, very good place for microbial contamination. No? You will see that the product from the bulk, if you take it, it is microbially clean, no microbial contamination. But after you fill the product in the container, you see microbial contamination coming from somewhere. So you have to see the pipelines. Very, very important, all the transfer pipelines. And also the manufacturing kettle. You have to sanitize it. You have to have a good manufacturing practices and sanitization protocol, right? So that you avoid microbial contamination through equipments and the production process, right? Then packaging materials. Containers and closures. See, you can take samples of these containers and closures, and you can do a plate count of that, whether they are contaminated, heavily contaminated. So there can be a contamination in this also. These are broadly the sources of contaminations, right? Of microbial contamination, sources of microbial contamination in your product, right? Now, again I am telling you, the microbial contamination can be from users also. That is consumers. No? When they take a cream, using fingers, right? Keep shampoos and other toiletries improperly closed in the toilet area, in the bathrooms, right? The bathrooms, if it is an attached bathroom, no, it's always it's humid, and it's a good source of contamination. So it has to be kept closed, or keep shampoo diluted with water. See what happens, no? When you dilute with water, two things. The water can be a source of contamination again. The preservative level reduces drastically. The water level increases. So there can be major microbial issues. So when you dilute the shampoo, use it, right? Don't dilute it and keep it for use next day. You have to be careful. So these are the some of the source of contamination. So what is finally an antimicrobial preservatives? Okay, antimicrobial substance which are exclusively or mainly intended to inhibit the development of microorganism in the cosmetic product. Right? See, list of antimicrobial preservatives. Right? List of antimicrobial preservatives you can take from EU regulation. List of preservatives allowed in cosmetic products, Annex 5, EC number 1223-2009 for cosmetics. Right? This is for cosmetics. Now, it's available in the Google. You can just go through all the preservatives and the percentage that can be used, and specific instructions. Some of the preservatives can't be used for specific functions, and that is there. However, in 2019 there was a notification of some changes in this Annex 5, which we will see now. Some one or two changes, we will see that now. See what are the things, and see there was a preservative quaternium 15, right? That will be seen in 2009 regulation. That is prohibited now, right? Just put it in your diary. Then there is another preservative chloroacetamide, which is given there. That is also prohibited and removed from Annex 5. Removed from Annex 5. Then formaldehyde as such as a preservative, right? Formaldehyde as a preservative, it is used, removed from Annex 5. Annex 3 as the ingredient, it was also there. It was removed from both. It is removed from Annex 5. Please note that. Then paraformaldehyde as a preservative, it's also removed from Annex 5. Please note down, these are the changes. And another preservative, polyaminopropyl biguanide, this is also amended. What is the amendment? Allowed for use as a preservative with a maximum concentration of 0.1%, except in application that may lead to exposure of end-to-end users' lungs by inhalation. No, it can't be put in inhalation product, but other products at maximum 0.1%. This is the modification made in this these are the modifications made in that preservative list. So get that 2019 list and you have to change these things accordingly, right? Change these things accordingly. So from there you can get the list of preservatives allowed, right? Now what we can see is some of the preservatives allowed and what are their advantages and disadvantages, right? So benzoic sorbic dihydroacetic acid, right? More active against yeast and molds, some activity against bacteria. It's pH dependent, only at low pH 4.5, 5 we can go maximum 5, above 5 it's not effective. Dihydroacetic acid is effective till 6, pH 6, otherwise it is effective only 5. So we will see the effect of pH, how the pH affects the preservative efficacy subsequently, right? Now these are parabens. Parabens are active against gram-positive bacteria, yeast and molds, relatively non-irritating and used at whatever concentration it is allowed, it is non-irritating. So generally it is inactivated by non-ionics and cationics, emulsifiers, right? More effective at acid pH, that is pH below 7. pH below 7, it is effective. Then the other class of compounds, quaternary ammonium compounds, benzalkonium chloride, cetylpyridinium chloride, benzethenium chloride, primarily active against gram-positive bacteria, some activity against gram-negative bacteria, most active above pH 7. We will come to that when the effect of the pH on preservatives I will discuss with you on that. Then incompatible with anionics, because it's a cationic preservative, it will be incompatible with anionics because they get neutralized, surfactants, and incompatible with proteins. Poor activity against Pseudomonas, another bacteria, right? Formaldehyde donors, okay, which is not a formaldehyde, but in the product ppm levels of formaldehyde is liberated, and that formaldehyde will act as a preservative. From the list, current 2019 quaternium 15 is eliminated. So all these formaldehyde donors, bronopol, glutaraldehyde, imidazolidine urea, diazolidine urea, DMDM hydantoin, they are broad spectrum of antimicrobial activity, relatively inexpensive, retain activity in the presence of surfactants, and effective over a wide range of pH, except bronopol, BNPD, which is not stable above pH 6. We can go till 7 because at alkaline pH it is not stable. Right? They are all broad spectrum. Okay, sorry, and these are the formaldehyde liberators. They are also broad spectrum. Some are incompatible with proteins. Because of formaldehyde liberation, they have some irritation problem. You have to be very careful. They are not permitted in some countries, right? So European Union has given list of preservatives, but the preservatives, usage of preservatives is undergoing lot of changes, right? People don't want parabens in the product. Some countries have some specifications which are different. So whenever you are a global company and developing product, you have to have the regulations of various countries on the preservatives allowed. In India, Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS. In India, BIS has set of regulations that will list of preservatives are there. It's similar to European Union, and so every country has that. See, for example, formaldehyde liberators are not permitted in some countries. Now you develop a product with formaldehyde liberators because it is allowed in India and some countries, Europe, but some countries will not allow that. So you will be in so it's very, very important. While the design stage itself, you have to, if you are a global company, see whatever you use in the product, it's globally approved in all the countries, right? That is very, very important. Then alcohols, ethyl alcohol, benzyl alcohol, 2,4-dichlorobenzyl alcohol, the broad spectrum, high concentration, more than 15% of ethyl alcohol is required for antimicrobial action, right? Ethyl alcohol is volatile, may evaporate from products over time. Alcohols may be inactivated by non-ionics, right? Organic mercurials, phenyl mercuric salts, broad spectrum, stable, high toxicity and irritancy, restrictions on use. So inactivated by proteins and anionics, may be inactivated by non-ionics. Generally this is not used regularly in cosmetic products. So now other widely used preservative which is not listed here is a combination of methyl chloro isothiazolone and methyl isothiazolone. Okay, a combination of preservative. This preservative, EU mentions this preservative in 2009 listing, but EU there it doesn't mention that it is only for cleansing products, but over a period of time it's allowed only for cleansing products, right? Like shampoos, face washes, right? So not for stay on creams and lotions, no, not for stay on products. So again you have to, you can check with the suppliers, suppliers of these ingredients, they are aware of the global regulations on the what is happening around the globe. Whenever you buy you get the preservative, some of the preservatives like benzoic, sorbic, dehydroacetic, parabens, cationics, all those things are very commonly used. Benzyl alcohol, phenoxyethanol. Phenoxyethanol is another very good preservative. Phenoxyethanol, it works, it synergizes with parabens, and this is also widely used preservative, phenoxyethanol. So these are all some preservatives widely used. You can see the list of ingredients on the labels also for cosmetic products, the preservatives used, and there are some natural preservatives, green preservatives, then some of the emollients that act as preservatives, right, which is not listed in EU. Before using those things, you have to ensure the safety of those ingredients and also the efficacy of those ingredients as a preservative, right. So preservation is a very, very important topic and very, very important in a cosmetic product. So this is very important. So some countries, the regulations on preservative is it's very, very it's not static, it's changing day by day. In recent trends, parabens are not allowed in some countries. So you have to be very careful. If you are a global company and developing product for the globe, you should have the entire regulation before you use those materials in your product, right. It's people use phenoxyethanol and benzoic acid, sorbic acid, dihydroacetic acid, right, and then parabens are also some of the countries they don't want, consumers they don't want, and it's really a challenge. And formaldehyde liberators, it's also on the hit list. So you have a very narrow range of preservatives, even though the list looks very big, narrow range of preservatives from which you can select. So it's a challenge, and yes, people are making products which are very microbially stable, and with these choices, so it's a challenge. Definitely you will all definitely meet that challenge, right. See again, antimicrobial preservatives, preservative and dose of preservative selection is based on the type of formulation ingredients, physicochemical properties and the category of the product, whether it's a baby product or it's a deodorant or antiperspirant. And I will important factor in antimicrobial preservative, next important aspect we have to look at is factors affecting the efficacy of an antimicrobial preservative. What are the factors? Dissociation and pH, concentration of the preservative, partition coefficient, susceptibility of the organisms to the preservative, interaction between ingredients and preservatives. These are the factors. Harry's Cosmeticology has discussed this topic very well, right. We will see the summary so that we will understand with examples each of these aspects. So dissociation and pH, right. Weak acids like benzoic acid are effective at low pH. They are effective in undissociated state. If dissociated, the anionic part repel with the negative charge of the bacterial cell wall, and so it is ineffective. So weak acids like benzoic acid, preferably pH 5 and below. Preferably product should be pH 5 and below. Above 5 it slowly start losing its efficacy, right. So benzoic acid, sorbic acid, these are all weak acids. They work at low pH because as you increase the pH, it start dissociating to ions. So once it start dissociating, its efficacy is lost, because the anionic part of it, right, anionic part of it will repel the negative charge of the bacterial wall. So COO minus will repel the negative charge of the bacterial wall, so that the efficacy is lost, because it's basically it acts on the bacterial wall of the the preservative. So if it is getting repelled, the efficacy will not be there. So it has to be in the undissociated states. On the contrary, cationics are effective in the dissociated form, right? Cationic benzalkonium chloride, cationic preservative. So they work at high pH, right? They work at high pH. Parahydroxybenzoic acid, parabens, they work relatively at a higher pH than the weak acids, benzoic acid and sorbic acid. It starts 50% dissociate at 8.5. Preferable pH is 7.5 and below for parabens to be more efficacious, right? After that it start dissociating rapidly. So weak acids low pH, cationics high pH, parabens, parahydroxybenzoic acid derivatives work till pH 7.5, can go till 8, but below. After that it will also start dissociating and it will lose its efficacy, right? So while these preservatives work in an undissociated form, cationics work in a dissociated form. Preservatives like bronopol gets degraded above pH 7. Bronopol is a very, very effective preservative, but the pH has to be well below 7, below 7 for efficacy, right? So that is very important, dissociation and pH, right? Now the next aspect is the concentration of the preservative, right? Concentration of the preservative is also very critical. See, it's not a general concentration, no, like medicines we take. Paracetamol 500 milligrams we take, but some of the other medicines we take 1 milligram dosage. It's again it's the efficacy, right? It's efficacy. And so now effect of preservative concentration can be as less as 0.001% in case of organic mercurial compound, to a level of 0.5% in case of organic acids. Phenoxyethanol we can go till 0.8%. So it's not, it is very, very specific to the preservative you use, right? The efficacy. Preservatives are also used in combination that works in synergy, right? Phenoxyethanol works very well with parabens. So you get a broad spectrum of efficacy. Aromatic alcohols, benzyl alcohol is one of the examples. Benzyl alcohol work with cationics like benzalkonium chloride and chlorhexidine very well, right? So the preservatives work in synergy. Preservatives work in synergy. So you can combine preservatives so that you get wide spectrum and overall the preservative, individual preservative levels can be reduced and you can get a wide spectrum, get this synergy, right. So the concentration of the preservatives. The next is the partition coefficient. This is also a very important thing, partition coefficient, right. What is partition coefficient? If especially in an emulsion, right, preservatives tend to move towards the oil phase, but preservative has to be in the water phase for its efficacy, right. It has to be in the water phase for its efficacy, but it can partition to the oil layer also. So conditions like pH, nature of oil phase ingredients can affect partition coefficient of the preservative, right. Propylene glycol is one such ingredient that what happens now, propylene glycol